from the News Channel 5 network. This is SportsLine.
Welcome inside SportsLine, everybody. John Burton with you for the next hour. Actually, our first SportsLine show of the week. So if you want to react to Sunday's Titans win over the Denver Broncos 13-10, you could certainly do that. 737-7767 is the number to call. I want to hear your thoughts on last week's game. What did you think of the defense? And what do you think about this week's game heading into Kansas City against the Chiefs? Huge game for the two-tone blue as they are tied atop the AFC South standings along with the Houston Texans. Keep in mind a couple of things. The Texans have a win over the Titans already this season, and Houston has a better in-division record than the Titans do. So it's a situation where the Titans will have to keep winning, and they're going to need probably a loss by the Texans in order to take the AFC South divisional title and move on to the playoffs. Also keep in mind, final regular season game of the year, the Texans will be here at Nissan Stadium here in Nashville. So that could be for all the marbles, but we're getting way ahead of ourselves. Up first, a big game in Kansas City against a very good Chiefs team. They are 10-3. Possibly the number 1 or 2 seed, probably the number 2 seed possibly in the AFC. So we're going to get more on that game. We're going to bring in our good buddy, Titans beat writer from the Tennessean, Jason Wolf, joins us here on SportsLine. Jason, happy holidays, buddy. Thanks for jumping on, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, John. Not a problem.
Jason, you know, it's funny. You know, we were both in the locker room today talking to the players, and man, this feels a lot different than last year at this time, and certainly the year before that. Here the Titans sit at 7-6 in a legitimate race for a division title and a playoff berth. It just seems like a different vibe in that locker room, doesn't it?
Yeah, without a doubt. You know, it's funny. This team hasn't been to the playoffs since 2008. The longest tenured member of the team is Jason McCourty, who, of course, was drafted in 2009. So there are very few players in that locker room who have any type of postseason experience, and every one of them joined the team through free agency. So, you know, this just kind of push for a playoff berth for a division title is really kind of foreign to the vast majority of the guys on this roster. And it is. It's a world of difference from last year, which, of course, was my first on the beat. You know, it was just kind of a slog. Obviously, you know, they fired the coach week 7, and then, you know, they were well out of it at that point and just playing out the string, but it wasn't particularly different from the previous year, you know, when they only won 2 games. And so it's been a long time coming when there's been meaningful football. Heck, almost in November, forget about December, in November, you know. I mean, the Titans have a winning record this late in the season for the first time since 2011. It's kind of fun, right? There's this feeling in the locker room that there's still something to play for. The games are very much meaningful, and guys are really excited. You can sense it.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it is fun. I mean, you know, listen, we're supposed to be objective journalists and not really have a rooting interest one way or the other, but it is fun to walk in that locker room and talk to guys when they are, you know, pushing for the playoffs, isn't it?
The games matter. Yeah. And that's really all that you can ask for with, you know, 3 games to go. I mean, all of the games matter. I mean, I heard you talk about how, you know, the Titans are tied for first place in the AFC South. They're going to need the Texans to lose at least one more to have a shot at the division because they're not going to win a tiebreaker. Obviously, the Texans come into Nashville for the regular season finale, and that could be for the championship. But beyond that, you know, the Titans do hold tiebreakers now over the Denver Broncos, over the Miami Dolphins. There is an outside chance that even if they don't win the division, that a wild card spot is at play.
Wow. And certainly good news if the Titans can keep winning. We're joined by Jason Wolf, Titans beat writer from the Tennessee, and you can follow him on Twitter at Jason Wolf. He's a great follow there if you're a Titans fan. Keep up with the latest news. Or, as we like to say on this program, you can actually go out and buy a newspaper, and you can read Jason's articles there, or, of course, go online as well. Before we look ahead, Jason, to...
yeah, all kinds of things.
Yeah. Before we look ahead to this Sunday's game against the Chiefs, I want to talk about last week's game against the Broncos. You know, here the Titans were without Jarrell Casey, their all-pro defensive end and really one of the tone setters on that defense. They had jumbled their secondary. Parrish Cox gone. They worked a number of different guys at the one cornerback spot opposite Jason McCourty, and yet that was one of the best defensive performances, probably the best defensive performance of the year, and they needed it on a day where Marcus Mariota and the Titans offense struggled. What did you make of that performance last week against the Broncos?
If you would have told me before the game that Marcus Mariota was going to throw for 88 yards, that the Titans were going to put 13 points on the board, that Jarrell Casey wasn't going to play, that Valentino Blake was going to lead the team in defensive snaps, and the Titans were going to beat the reigning Super Bowl champion Broncos, I'd have said you were crazy. And I don't think anybody else would feel any different. It was really remarkable to see what exactly happened on Sunday. And you're right, the defense led the way. The special teams gave some pretty huge contributions, and that's a unit that they fired their coordinator earlier this season. I mean, that's a unit that's been responsible for a number of costly mistakes this year. Trey McBride downing that punt at the 2-yard line inside 2 minutes, making the Broncos drive 60, 70-plus yards just to try to hope to get into field goal range was huge. On a day when Mariota had by far the least productive passing performance of his young career, the defense came up huge. The special teams came up huge. The offense made the plays when they needed to make them, and they won a close game against a really good team at home where they've struggled, over the last several seasons in December. I think it was a real turning point for this franchise moving forward. I think it bodes well for this upcoming Sunday at Kansas City.
Jason Wolf from the Tennessean is our guest here on SportsLine. All right, Jason, let's go ahead and talk about this week's game in Kansas City, facing a very good Chiefs team. They're 10-3. They have 2 wins over the Raiders. They're in control of the AFC West. They are seemingly in control of the number 2 seed in the AFC. You factor that in. You also factor the fact that it's in Arrowhead Stadium, which is always a tough place to play, although the Titans did win the last time they were there. It was opening day back in 2013. I was there, but that was in September where it was nice and toasty and warm. It's going to be single digits on Sunday for the noon kickoff, which, by the way, you can watch on News Channel 5, folks listening at home. Certainly a tough ask for the Titans to go into Arrowhead Stadium and get a win this Sunday.
Yeah, this was, when you look at the final month of the schedule, obviously the Broncos coming in here, I'm not sure very many people penciled that in as a victory when the schedule first came out, but I don't know anybody who saw a December game at Arrowhead Stadium and said, oh, yeah, the Titans are going to win that, or the Titans are even going to have a chance to win that game. The Chiefs, as you said, they're one of the best teams in the conference, at least in terms of their record. Now, they've played a number of close games, and when you look at their team statistics, there's nothing that really jumps out at you. They're one of the worst teams in the league in overall defense, in run defense. They have a fairly middling offense, but they're top 10 in terms of points allowed, and they lead the league in takeaways. And so, when you're not allowing teams into the end zone and you're ripping the ball from their possession, that goes a long way toward a 10-3 record. It's going to be a hard game for the Titans to win. I don't think by any means that it's a definite loss. I'm actually, going to play the role of Homer this week. I'm officially predicting a victory on the Tennesseans Titans podcast.
There you go. There you go. All right.
Titans 17-16. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you in terms of predictions go, but and it can certainly go the other way. There's a lot that frightens me about the Chiefs. Chief among them is Tyreek Hill,
sure,
a punt and kickoff returner. He's got 2 touchdowns already on returns this season, and if you're a Titans fan, I know you're probably still holding your breath when it comes to their coverage units. And so, one big play is going to swing this ball game one way or the other. I think if the Titans can continue to pound the ball like they did against Denver, if DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry can, churn out some solid yardage, especially straight up the middle now that the Chiefs are missing their leading tackler, inside linebacker. Derek Johnson was lost for the season last week to a ruptured Achilles tendon. I think the Titans can keep this close, low scoring, and potentially leave Arrowhead with a victory and an 8-6 record, and remain tied for first place in the division. It would be by far the marquee victory of the season. I think right now we're looking at the big win against the Packers, and obviously this past week against the Broncos, both at home, as probably the most impressive W's so far this year. But if they can go into Kansas City in December and sneak out a victory against a team that's leading what may be the best division in football and angling for a first-round playoff bye, I think that would signal that the Titans have arrived.
No question about it, Jason. I actually misspoke. That was opening day of 2014 when the Titans went into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs.
First game, right?
Yes, it was Ken Wisenhunt's first game. Jason McCourty, who you referred to earlier, had 2 interceptions in that game. And Jake Locker threw a touchdown pass to Delaney Walker. So it's amazing how you can remember that kind of stuff. I can't remember what I had for breakfast today. I can't remember where I left my keys. I can't remember where I parked here at the station.
And Ken Wisenhunt was undefeated as Titans head coach.
Yes, he was. It didn't last long, did it? Jason, you and I, obviously, I'm from upstate New York. You're from the Philadelphia area. You and I are used to cold weather. We grew up in it. It's going to be really cold on Sunday in KC. How much do you think the weather will have an effect on either team this Sunday?
Mike Mularkey said today that, the weather is kind of all mental. It's in your head. You're going to be as cold as you want to be, or as warm as you want to be. I don't know, man. When it gets cold out there, look, the Northeast, as well as I do, it does get cold. There's the wind is the worst when it just kind of slices through your clothing, and you can feel it aching in your bones, and your teeth are chattering. And I mean, I'm no professional athlete, but I know what cold is, and I imagine that it's far more difficult to perform to your peak ability when you're dealing with that type of an atmosphere. The ball feels like a rock. I was talking to Brian Arakpo today. I'm like, what's it feel like when you hit a guy and it's below freezing? He's like, it hurts, man. It hurts. It hurts a lot more than it usually does. So, I think it can't help but to affect many of the players, and Mularkey did say that it does affect the play calling. You have to manage the game a lot more, and single digits is another type of cold. I'm not sure what it's going to be with the wind chill, but this is going to be a level of cold that many of these players, I think, haven't experienced before. Marcus Mariota cracked me up today when he was talking about back when he was in high school in Hawaii, the coldest game he ever played in was 75 degrees.
Yeah, I got a chuckle out of that, too. That was great.
It's going to be a real eye-opening experience for a lot of these players. And that's one thing that really concerns me as well. The playoff atmosphere, playing at Arrowhead is one thing, but then single digits at kickoff is going to be brutal.
No question. Jason Wolf joins us here on SportsLine. Final question, Jason. I'll get you out of here on this. And again, we appreciate you jumping on. Last week, Kendall Wright, late to some meetings late in the week, did not dress for last week's game against Denver, was deactivated. Are we looking at the final days of Kendall Wright as a Tennessee Titan? It seems like his role in the offense has been diminished somewhat, and it just doesn't seem like he's long for Tennessee anymore. Am I wrong in assessing that?
No, I don't think there's any doubt that he's out of here after this year.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have been around this season if it weren't for Rustin Webster picking up his fifth-year option before the start of last season.
Sure.
This is a guy who's pocketing over $7 million this year, and I think he's the least productive wide receiver on the team. You know, obviously he missed the first 3 weeks of the season with that lingering hamstring strain that cost him the entire preseason as well. It was slow to get on the same page, which is a shame, too, because we saw early in training camp, you know, he was providing a deep threat. Mariota connected with Wright on several occasions early in training camp before he was injured.
Right.
And, you know, that's something that's a dynamic that the Titans' offense really lacks. But, look, if you're Kendall, that's an ugly look last week. Here's a guy who is going to be heading toward free agency one way or the other. And if I'm the Titans, I'm not paying that guy.
Yeah.
If I'm another team, you look at what happened here, that's a terrible situation, right? I mean, this team is trying to really get over the hump, get a winning record for the first time, you know, all year, trying to keep pace in the division, make a playoff push. It's December. You've got the reigning Super Bowl champs coming into town, and your former first-round draft pick and a guy who's ostensibly the most talented wide receiver on the roster is going to show up late to a meeting and then get deactivated. You're not going to use him. You know what? I'll give Mike Mularkey credit for drawing that line in the sand and saying, look, you know, you don't show up on time, you're not going to play for this football team. I think that was a really excellent way to kind of set that tone. Now, it could have backfired, and in some respects may have backfired. You know, we're looking at Mariota completing 6 passes for 88 yards.
Right.
I'm sure as heck think they could have used Kendall on Sunday. But, you know, he didn't show up on time for a meeting on Saturday, and he paid the price, and he had to sit there and watch his teammates defeat the defending Super Bowl champions at home. I mean, he apologized after the game through the media to his coaches, to his teammates, but that doesn't cut it, man.
Yeah.
They're paying him a lot of money to be a big part of this team, and even when he's healthy, he's not. You know, they're using him situationally, and so to see him deactivated on Sunday, just, I mean, that's heart-wrenching. I mean, that's terrible, and I don't see there's any way that he's coming back, and I think he did himself a tremendous disservice, probably cost himself a lot of money when it comes to free agency.
There you have it. He's Jason Wolf, Titans beat writer of the Tennessean. Jason, we really appreciate you jumping on tonight. Happy holidays to you and your family, and look forward to having you on again.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, John. Same to you.
All right. Jason Wolf of the Tennessean. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Jason Wolf and read his coverage of the Titans in the Tennessean. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back with your phone calls. Also, we're going to be joined by the head coach of the Tennessee State football team, Rod Reed. He's going to give us a couple of minutes, talk about his season and what he looks forward to going forward for the Big Blue Tigers. And your phone calls. Stay with us. We're back right after this.